Hello, this is Demon Phoenix with another Witcher 3 video, this one about the basics of hybrid builds. For me, hybrid builds are all based around versatility. You can have a more powerful build with my tank build if you want to just go pure combat and alchemy, but the medium armor and the medium Witcher gear lets you just have a little bit more versatility, really roleplay as being Geralt, and it's a lot of fun being like a pure Witcher. So these mainly revolve around the medium Witcher gears for me, like I say, and they involve a use of combat and alchemy and signs all in one build. So there are 4 different Witcher gear sets which you can use, and these are what I mainly base the hybrid builds around. So the Wolven gear is a really good all-rounder armor, and it has different bonuses for each part of the set. The chest has good resistances and adrenaline boost. The Griffin armor is a set based around sign intensity, where all the pieces give you sign intensity bonuses. The Manticore armor is based around giving extra toxicity and critical hit bonuses, so the boots and the chest give critical hit damage bonuses, whereas the critical hit percentage is increased by the trousers and the gauntlets. And then the Viper armor is from Hearts of Stone, so unlike the Grandmaster sets from Blood and Wine, it doesn't have any set bonuses, but you get it a level earlier, so level 39 in the base game. And it has the best resistances, so it has the highest resistance for damage and elementals of any of the chest pieces. Most of my actual builds, I will use 3 pieces of Griffin armor in the builds, even if I'm using a different chest piece. And the reason for that is that the Grandmaster sets that you get from Blood and Wine have bonuses for having 3 or 6 pieces of the set, and the 3 set bonus for the Griffin, it lets you use signs twice. So if you use a sign and that uses your stamina, you can cast another of the base signs within 3 seconds. So this is brilliant because you can use Quen and then another like Ard, like I just did there, or Igni, or you can even use the same sign twice. For example, if you wanted to use Igni and then turn around and use Igni on another set of enemies. One of the ways you do this is just to have the 3 sets, like one chest piece. Here I've got the Wolven with the Griffin gauntlets, trousers and boots, or you can have 2 pieces of the Griffin armor and then use sword switching to always have one of the Grandmaster Griffin swords equipped, even if you're not using it. These swords will quickly get outclassed during the game, so you don't want to be actually using them for combat when you're on New Game Plus. But if you're having a Toussaint Knight steel sword, you could equip the Griffin silver sword when you go into the menu to apply your oil to the Toussaint Knight steel sword, and then that would mean that you still get the 3 set bonus, but you're using the better sword. And then vice versa, you can use the Griffin Grandmaster steel sword whenever you equip Erendite, and then put your oil on Erendite. I have a separate video about this for sword switching and keeping the enchantment preservation at all times, so check that out. The next key part of any build is looking at your mutations. So when you're looking at the mutations, there are 2 that stand out for me. Euphoria is by far the most overpowered thing in Witcher 3 in my opinion. It is absolutely fantastic. If you're at 100% toxicity, then it can give you a 75% bonus for your attack power and sign intensity. But this scales with your acquired tolerance and metabolic control abilities, which can mean that the bonus can be absolutely massive. The other fantastic mutation that I really like is Piercing Cold, and that adds a massive amount of damage to Ard. If you knock over a frozen enemy, there's a 25% chance that it kills them outright, and it does massively increase damage. It also freezes the enemy, so even on enemies it's not as effective on, it's still very good. Now the thing with Piercing Cold is you always have to make sure that you have a build that has potions, which I'll come on to in a minute, because some builds are decoctions only. For the other mutations, you can see the descriptions here, and they're just not as powerful. Pretty much everything is outclassed by Euphoria, like Adrenaline Rush, which will give you a bonus based on the number of enemies in combat and then goes down after a certain amount of time in the fight. There's no point, because you can just use a massive bonus from Euphoria and keep that the whole time. Mutated Skin you just saw there is quite interesting, but you can become pretty much invincible with Protective Coating and Arakas Decoction with the right armor anyway. And Metamorphosis is a really fun one. I may do a fun build about that, but it's still not as powerful as Euphoria. So it's mainly Euphoria and Piercing Cold. The next key thing you have to consider in any hybrid build, in my opinion, is which skills you're going to use and what options you're going to have for your alchemy, specifically how you're going to raise your toxicity, and if you have decoctions or potions or a combination of both. Acquired Tolerance is the main skill for this. With 3 points and all of the alchemy formulae learned, you have 267 toxicity. That is enough for you to have 3 decoctions and then use potions on top of that, which is really good. Some of the potions are really powerful, and the decoctions, if you pick the right ones, are really good. You can boost your toxicity further by either using the Manticore gear, so here you see that using certain pieces of the Manticore gear, which each provide a toxicity boost, will give you enough for 4 decoctions only. Now decoctions only is really good with Euphoria because the toxicity doesn't decline over time, it just stays until the decoctions run out, and that gives you a pretty much permanent bonus to your euphoria. The drawback is that you can't use potions if you don't have the extra toxicity to use it, but the other good thing is if you watch my decoction and potion toxicity video, which is also on my channel, it gives a breakdown of how decoction toxicity doesn't hurt you unless it's combined with potion toxicity. So your decoctions by themselves are really powerful, and you can use skill switching there as well. So if you don't want to use the Manticore gear, you can also use metabolic control, and that would give you enough toxicity for 4 decoctions. If you use metabolic control and acquired tolerance with one piece of the Manticore gear, like you just saw there, I had 302 toxicity, and that's enough for 4 decoctions and one of the 20-point potions. If you use either the Manticore trousers or the Manticore chest, they give a slightly larger toxicity boost, like you can see here, and that makes it 307. Now that's enough for 4 decoctions and any of the 25-point potions, which includes the really powerful ones like Superior Petri Filter for Signs or Thunderbolt, which adds a massive 35% damage for the superior one. The absolute max toxicity that you can get is with the Manticore gear, enough of those pieces, and also having acquired tolerance and metabolic control, and that can give you over 320. Now that's enough to use either 4 regular decoctions and the Basilisk decoction, or to use 4 decoctions and then potions on top of that, which is very powerful, but obviously you have to have those specific gears equipped. You can use 5 decoctions using skill switching, which is on one of my other videos, and the only thing you could do there is a decoction only build and use the skill switching. One of the important things to consider is heightened tolerance. Now heightened tolerance is a really good skill because it stops you taking the damage from going over the toxicity threshold of 70%, but you really have to think about if it's worth it, because even though you take damage from potion toxicity over 70%, there are lots of ways to offset this, such as using the troll decoction or using the greater glyphs of regeneration in your armor, and the only thing that you really miss out on by taking that damage with not having heightened tolerance is using the Wartag decoction. And with hybrid builds, I find that a lot of the time I'm better off using other decoctions and not worrying about the damage from potion toxicity, and to have an extra slot, because the slots are crucial. If you're using a potions only build, delayed recovery is an excellent option, and that'll be featuring in some of the builds. And fast metabolism is an amazing skill that means that your toxicity absolutely flies down from using potions, and that'll be combined in a lot of the builds where I use a combination of decoctions and potions, or just potions itself. So moving on to the defensive options that you have for hybrid builds, protective coating is one of the absolute best abilities in the game, and there's also tissue transmutation and endure pain, which can both increase your vitality if you need, if you have the right conditions. Endure pain is if, again, you're not using heightened tolerance. Endure pain, the extra damage that you take actually makes it so that you have 50% increased vitality. There's also refreshment, which I just glanced over there, and that's an interesting one that you can use as well. So you can use these defensive options. There's also a few in the combat skill tree, like Undying and Fleet-footed, and also Resolve, which will stop you from losing adrenaline points when you get hit if you have 5 points in it. So those are all interesting things to consider, and those ones, as well as being defensive options, will also boost your greater red mutagens to increase your attack power. For the decoctions, there's the Griffin decoction, which increases your resistance percentage for each hit you take, which can be really powerful, and the main one is the Arakas decoction. So if you keep your inventory weight down, as you've seen probably on my tank build, which is really powerful, then the Arakas decoction gives you more protection depending on how empty your inventory is. It's up to a maximum of 20%, but it's usually around 15% or less, but 15% for having about a quarter of your inventory full is a massive boost. For the offensive options, you've got the fast attack skills including Whirl, and you've got the strong attack skills including Rend. The Rend ones and strong attack skills in particular go well on a high signs build, because enemies like elementals are extremely resistant to sign damage, but they are not as resistant to heavy attacks because that ignores armor. So then you've got a few other things you could use: Deadly Precision, Razor Focus and Sunder Armor, but with having less skill slots I often don't find space for those on the builds, and they're more luxuries than everything else. Flood of Anger is a good option, but it's a bit bugged and it doesn't work, and it will take your adrenaline a lot of the time without casting the sign, which is irritating. And then a key skill for all of my hybrid builds is Griffin School Techniques, which is why we're using medium armor. and that increases your sign intensity and especially your stamina regeneration. So with the Griffin bonus of 3 set bonuses and the Griffin School techniques, you can use signs a lot more, and you can also boost that with the Ancient Lesson Decoction. So for your offensive options, the Echidna Decoction is an excellent choice. It's both offensive and defensive, so when you're using your signs, use up your stamina, or using Rend or the Arch Griffin Decoction, it will increase your health. The potions, there's the Superior Tornial, Petri Filter, Maribor for your adrenaline increase, and Thunderbolt, and they're all really powerful. And then if you're using a potions based build, depending on what you're using, you can also use things like Golden Aureole and Superior Full Moon. And for the decoctions, there are things like Ancient Lesson Decoction to gradually increase your stamina as you go, and a load of really powerful ones as well. Warthog Decoction is very good too. This is just a little excerpt from one of my other videos, so if you look at the level 54 tank build video, it also has a tutorial about how to have a third ability, as you can see in the middle abilities there. So here we've got Piercing Cold, and we've actually got a green ability there, so I'll put a link to that video in the description so you can learn how to do that. It's not essential, but it can give you an extra slot and mean that you can finish the build earlier in New Game Plus, which is a really good little bonus. So these are the sort of basics that I'll be going over, and each build will use a different focus and have a different set of abilities. So there'll be like a Wolven one which will use sign use and be more offensive, and there is also a one that I've really enjoyed recently, which is a Viper defensive build based around Euphoria but still having the signs, and there'll be a few others as well. So I hope you enjoy the few videos as I start putting them up. If you have any questions about the mechanics in the video, then let me know. So these videos will be coming up on my channel, so please do like and subscribe if you enjoyed or you want to see these builds, and hopefully there'll be, you know, a few interesting things that you can play. So I'll be putting those up, and there'll be a few different things, and hopefully you enjoy. So thank you very much, leave a like, and thank you for watching. Bye bye.